Enjoy all episodes of the RCWR Show on iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, Spreaker, and iHeartRadio.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for checking out the RCWR Show. Show the ultimate fan support and follow the show on Facebook, Twitter, Periscope, and Instagram at the RCWR Show. For original merchandise from the mind and hands of yours truly and friends, head over to cafepress.com/RCWR Show. Go to that next wrestling or concert event in style. That's cafepress.com/RCWR Show. And visit InfinityOneProductions.com, the exclusive home for new and exclusive original content, such as our 30 with Lee series, bonus RCWR Show episodes, and much, much more. InfinityOneProductions.com. That's with an E as in Edward, put in the actual number 1, InfinityOneProductions.com. Do you like podcasts? Do you love podcasts? Have you ever wondered which podcasts are created in your local area? Then you should check out the Satchel Podcast Player, now available for both iPhone and Android. Satchel is the world's first podcast player that allows you to discover both locally sourced and locally focused podcasts right in your hometown, just like the RCWR Show with Lee Sanders. Listen local and download the player right now at satchelplayer.com. That's SATCHELPLAYER.com. Satchelplayer.com. And while you're there, if you haven't done so already, make sure you subscribe to the RCWR Show so you never miss out on the great episodes we do for you all each and every single week.
Warning, the RCWR Show with Lee Sanders is intended for a mature audience only. The following is an Infinity One Productions presentation, keeping it honest, insightful, and interactive. Covering the latest in wrestling and beyond since 2011. You're listening to the RCWR Show. Now, your host, live from the nation's capital in Washington, D.C., Lee Sanders.
Ah, yes. What is going on, boys and girls? Black Avenger, a.k.a. the Black Azrael, Lee Sanders. You're checking out an all-new, the RCWR Show for Tuesday night, February 21st, 2017. Oh my God, a lot of stuff to get into on this edition, as a lot of stuff had went down from a wrestling standpoint since last we were on the air with you good, kind people. As always, as we're going to be live for the next little bit, I'd love to hear from you, so feel free to interact with me a couple of different ways. We got the chat active right now on the Spreaker.com website. Feel free to poke your head on in there, say hello. You can also get at me on Twitter at the RCWR Show. While you're at it, follow me on there. Follow me on Facebook, Instagram as well, at the RCWR Show, as I love trying to do my best to interact with you guys in between the shows. Yeah, man, just saw SmackDown go off the air. Talk about a little bit of a fuck finish that we had going on. I don't quite agree with that ending. However, I was on this very show last week saying, hey, WWE has like over 40 plus days to make their stories and connecting all the dots as far as the matches, the programs, the rivalries, storylines that they want to see culminate at WrestleMania. Like, take your time. There's no reason to blow your load in just one freaking shot on one freaking episode. So am I a little bit remotely pleased that WWE is kind of stretching it out a little bit over on the SmackDown side of things? To an extent, I'm a little bit happy, but exactly not the way I would have painted it out. I think a lot of you all definitely wouldn't have set it up this way. So I think we can all be in agreement on that, but we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a little bit. Hope your weekend was very good. Mine was pretty relaxing. I can't complain too much, quite honestly. Before I dive into everything, man, so quick heads up. I was playing around with Facebook over the weekend. A couple of things I was actually playing around with website-wise over the weekend, and one of the first things I was playing around with, and it's critical that I get this out in the open up front, because I know like the first 30 minutes of our show, 30 to the first hour of the show, you all are like really representing, and then maybe on a couple of minutes or a couple hours later, you all resume the second half from what I kind of see of the analytics. So I got to push this out in the open right now. Indulge me, guys and gals. So I was playing around on Facebook and I had discovered, oh, wow, this is fucking badass. So apparently, like, my page was like pre-qualified for a review section on the page. So basically what that means is when you land on the RCWR show on Facebook, you can now leave a rating and a review. So I don't know how many of you guys have like been poking your head on there on Facebook, but like those of you that have Facebook, I would love it if you can do me a solid and if you can go over to the Facebook page, facebook.com/the RCWR show, and click on the reviews tab, leave a 5-star rating, leave a good review, say some things, and I think this will really help us in 2017 because it kind of follows up on what I was saying before, which was 2017, to follow up on a Facebook post I said, like right before the weekend, or actually it might have been during the weekend, but regardless, I basically said, look, we did really good with listenership last year on Spreaker. Let's see if we can now triple it. I mean, we pretty much doubled it like from year one. And like going into year 2, we pretty much doubled. Let's see if we can now triple it for this year. So you can play a huge part in that by leaving a rating and review, preferably the 5-star reviews. I really, really would appreciate that. Now, look, if you're not feeling my show is deserving of your 5-star rating right now, that is okay. You can do me a huge favor. All right? You can post a message on the Facebook page, or you can post something on Twitter, and you can basically let me know, Lee, I'd love to give it to you, but I need you to do this 1 to 2, maybe 3 things before you have it. Even if, like, Lee, if I do this, Kate, can you do this for me? Can I get a firm yes? Can I get a internet verbal handshake or whatever? Okay, whatever I got to do to earn that 5-star. I want to earn it. So for those of you that have been listening this long and you feel that I am deserving of your 5-star rating, definitely go ahead, do that. But that's really going to help. It's going to have a huge domino effect in reaching out to other listeners. And not to mention, I played around. I didn't even know this at the back end of Facebook, but apparently there was like some analytics that I could have selected to like, hey, Facebook, this is like the audience I want you to target for my show. These genres, this age, all these weird analytics that like I thought was only like at your disposal if like you ran an ad campaign to try to see if you can gain followers that way. You're basically paying to have your page promoted on Facebook. No, you can just go in the back end and there's like these weird default settings, and I never said it before, and I've had the Facebook page for a couple of years now. It's back when it was Infinity One Productions. So I was like, wow, that's fucking awesome. So I got that out the way. And then the second point, and this is very critical, so I need you guys to indulge me because this next piece is very critical. It's more important than what I just said on Facebook, right? Now, a while back, I had created a Patreon page, and it was really awesome. I was like, okay, let me go ahead, let me set this up. So we had a couple of donators, and I was like, okay, this is nice. And then we've had to date one of our biggest supporters right now, right over the weekend. We had longtime listener Freddie, and Freddie whenever you're going to be listening to this, if you're going to be listening to this live or if you're going to be listening to this on the downloads, I need you to hit me up because I don't know your Twitter handle. I need you to hit me up on Twitter so that I can begin to roll out some of the perks for you. But Freddie, he represented. When I say Freddie, look, I'm not trying to make it seem like one amount is more important than, but I mean, like, when it, like, really counted to, Lee, you got my financial backing like 100%. Freddie stepped up to the plate. And Freddie, I humbly appreciate that. So it really kind of got me going, you know what? I really haven't been promoting the Patreon like that. And I had a conversation with the missus off and on the past couple of weeks. And she's like, why don't you promote the Patreon page more? And I told her, I said, well, I don't want to come off like I'm e-begging. She's like, well, you're not e-begging. You're just simply telling people if they support what you do, they love what you do, they got to know by now that what you do is not free and it's not cheap. So if they can help you out, like, there's nothing wrong with saying, if you like the show, support it, put in a donation. There's nothing wrong with that. If they can be a monthly financial backer, that's great. But she's like, you got to promote it more. So to kind of see what that went down with Freddie over the weekend, it just kind of reaffirmed what she was saying. So I'm like, wow, cool. So, like, from here on out, I'm, like, now going to start really promoting the Patreon, John. I'm not going to go overkill. I probably might mention it 2, maybe 3 times max during the episode. I'll try to go for 2, and we'll see how that goes. But I played around with the back end for Patreon, and it turns out I never did take any money from you guys that initially put in your status as a financial backer. So your credit cards were never charged. So although you did your part at your end, I didn't do my part on the back end, messing around with the payout and when do I want to, like, start billing and all that other jazz. So I have to get in contact with Patreon, but if I'm not mistaken, I believe either before the end of this month or like the very first week in March is when those of you that had put in your gratuity to the show, your financial support to the show, you all will start being billed. So my message in a nutshell, like, watch your credit card statements. Do not think that you're being, like, triple, double, or whatever the case is. If you decided you wanted to back up the show financially monthly, you'll only be billed once a month. You have my word on that. So make sure you guys know exactly what's going on so that you all don't hit me up on social media and be like, Lee, what the hell is this, man? I don't quite understand this. But yeah, check that out. Great stuff. You can go to patreon.com/RCWR Show, I believe is what it is. It's been so long. I gotta now, like, do it. Like, I think it's patreon.com/RCWR Show. Let's see if I'm right, because I mean, that's how, like, inactive I'm not really. And I got it right the first time. That's good for cobweb memory there. Yeah, patreon.com. That's P as in Peter, ATREON.com, patreon.com. And slowly but surely, like, I've already been doing a little bit of work off and on the past couple of months on the website, and which to the point, Freddie gets some really nice perks, and the timing of this is really good because Lucha Underground is about to come back, and I've got to get caught up on what all I missed of the second season so I can anticipate the third season. But make no mistake about it, exclusive to our Patreon listeners, they're going to be getting my thoughts. They're going to get a nice little mini Lucha Underground after show as soon as the episodes air live on the El Rey Network and all that. So that's going to be some awesome stuff. So I see we had some passings, like, leading up to this show. I mean, we had talked about Nicole Boss, and we're now kind of getting a little bit of new information. You got some bad wrestling websites that's out there that is putting their own unique spin on the news of her passing, the circumstances surrounding her death and all that. They're basically trying to put their own stamp mark on it in a way where it comes off as though they are the ones that's delivering such good exclusive news that you're not going to be able to find anywhere else. Only here do we have the news for you. And it's very degrading. It just screams, look at us, look at us, look at this, we get the exclusives. It's all about the clickbait. That's all what it's about, driving the traffic, trying to get that clickbait. That's what it is in a nutshell. And you just really cannot trust the information that is out there on social media. The way it's coming off right now is one of Nicole Boss's wishes was that she wanted to be cremated. Now, close friends, family to her, they're saying, look, this is like what she wanted. And then at the same time, you also have some stories floating around from the same sources that, you know, they really cannot afford to do a full-blown funeral. They can't afford the coffin and, you know, the flowers, a really nice, warm ceremony. So it is what it is. So you've got that report that's going on. But one thing that's definitely consistent right now is that close friends and family of Nicole's, they just really want privacy as much as humanly possible. And I think at this point, if they really do want to release some type of information as far as the cause of death, however the case may be, if it was drug related or what have you, if they really want to release that information to the public, to her fans, then that's at their discretion to do it. But I just really feel that all the wrestling websites, all the video vloggers, because this is pretty much how it goes. You pretty much have these video vloggers that will not truly give in-depth commentating. They will not give true in-depth analysis on a news such as, hey, this person had died. They just pretty much will get in front of the webcam. And I'm not singling anybody out in particular or bashing anybody in particular, so listeners, don't take this the wrong way. But you've seen it. You know the drill. You know, it's like they basically read word for word what they just pulled from a website, and it's kind of like, well, shit, you could have done that yourself. So you got these bad rumors that's just floating around right now, and it's just really, really unfortunate. Now, some of you may be saying, well, Lee, how do you kind of know that what's floating around right now is like some bad rumors and all that? Well, number one, good colleague of ours, Don Tony, he has been friends with Nicole Boss, or he was friends with Nicole Boss for like a little bit over 35 years. So he's definitely close friends / acquaintances with several members of her family, several friends. So that is the authority that you have right there. Kevin Castle even echoed somewhat similar news as well. So, you know, I always tell you guys, take what you hear with a grain of salt when it comes to the news that you hear, because there's always more to it that meets the eye. Yeah? So, was I a little bit surprised that WWE did not acknowledge her passing on this week's WWE programming? Because when it's all said and done, you got 2 shows that air on television each week on the USA Network. And the fact that she wasn't mentioned, it was kind of like, But then, at the same time, we need to remember, going back to about 2002, maybe 2003, she had filed a lawsuit against the WWE, saying that she was a victim of being sexually harassed by the Brooklyn Brawler, and that went for a couple of years. I think it concluded in like 2004, maybe 2005 or something like that, but she didn't get any money out of that. And, you know, the timing of that was pretty sad because, you know, honestly, when it's all said and done, nobody really had anything bad to say about the Brooklyn Brawler. I mean, that was like really the first time that the Brooklyn Brawler was like in the spotlight at such a negative light, I might add. So to kind of, you know, take that and just also think about everything that was kind of going on with Nicole around that time, am I a little bit surprised that WWE didn't throw up at least a graphic? They didn't have to necessarily talk about her, but could they have at least thrown up a graphic? I think that would have been a really classy thing to do, because it just has always come off over the years that WWE has always tried to be the bigger person. So for them to not acknowledge her passing on their shows this week, it was just a little bit, it almost kind of got me scratching my head wondering if they even acknowledged her on their WWE.com website. I mean, I remember seeing the WWE articles for George the Animal Steele, Ivan Koloff, but I do not recall anything for Nicole Boss. So I thought that was a little bit, I won't say tasteless, but was it slightly disappointing? Yes, it was definitely slightly disappointing. And we were live on the air when the news had first broke out that Nicole Boss had died, by the way. So that was just kind of like, damn. And of course, another passing that we had go down. I'm not really sure if we had talked about it already. I don't believe we did, because if I'm not mistaken, when the news had first came about, the show was already in the books, if I'm not mistaken, because I believe we found out the news about George the Animal Steele Friday morning going into the afternoon of last week, because I remember we came on live for you guys one time only last Thursday night, and you know, you hear that, you're like, so I've had some time to like kick back and really marinate on the passing of George the Animal Steele. But I mean, just to kind of recap on what was going on with him in a respected nutshell, I really feel like we talked about this briefly, and maybe I did talk about it briefly on YouTube. I'm pretty sure I did mention his passing, but you know, he passed away, what was it, last Friday, correct? Yeah, I just said Friday. He passed away last Friday, died at the age of 79, was in hospice, hospital care due to kidney failure. So this is a guy that had been having his fair share of health problems for many years. I mean, it almost goes as far back as late 70s, going into the mid 80s is when he really started having his problems. But, you know, when I think about George the Animal Steele, the first thing that comes into my mind is the bald head, is the hairy body, the way he would come down to the ring and he just kind of acted like this savage. And I just love the trademark signature biting of the turnbuckle pads, you know, ripping them open like an actual animal. And I just actually remember being a little kid back in the 80s and just kind of like being scared of this guy. There wasn't really too many guys I was scared of back in the day as a kid. Undertaker was one of them. I was actually genuinely scared of Yokozuna, just seeing the fact that he would just do what he did from the middle rope and just bunzaiing, just sitting on people basically with all that damn weight. I used to be scared of that dude. I just thought he was like fucking intimidating as hell. Jake the Snake Roberts, you know, he had a cool kind of sinister mystique to him. I remember I wasn't really a big fan of the Snakes, but he was a little bit intimidating to me as well. Maybe that explains a little bit of the fumbles that I had in that one and only sit-down conversation I had with him many years back, which unfortunately never saw the light of day. That's probably like, if I were to tell you guys, like, of all the interviews I've done with folks over the years, what's the one interview that, like, Lee, was there ever an interview where, like, you reverted back to a little kid because of, like, how much, like, you were in all of them growing up? Now, some, especially my longtime friends, they may kind of feel like, well, shit, it's got to be Shawn Michaels. No, on the contrary. And this was way before the shit that had went down with Shawn that ultimately had got our show blocked on Twitter. No. On the contrary, as for me being all giddy and all that, it was definitely the Jake the Snake Roberts, because it was like, holy shit, I'm talking to Jake the Snake Roberts. And I was bummed at the way, some of you newer listeners, you may not know what went down, but in a nutshell, just so I can kind of get back on track, in a nutshell, Jake the Snake Roberts and I and his people, we were trying to hammer out when we could sit down and do our interview with him. And God, I can't remember how long ago this was. It feels like maybe it was almost 4, maybe 5 years ago. For sure not in the past 3 years. I'm definitely more leaning towards 4 to 5 years. So, long story short, I get Jake Roberts, and look, I love the guy. I'm not bashing him whatsoever, because I know he has tried to make leaps and bounds to improve his health for the better. But I swear to you guys, Jake Roberts was not well during our interview. He sounded as though he was a bit off mentally. He kind of came off as if, I don't know if maybe he took too much of maybe a particular medication he was on, if there was a slight relapse or what. But it was, of all the interviews I've conducted over the years, there's only 2 interviews that I've ever conducted where I walked away and I said, I'm not really feeling that. That was really, really weak. And one of those is live on YouTube. Now, if I single out who the wrestler is, you guys will be like, oh shit. And I don't want it to be like a bashing session. What I will tell you guys, it was a low ball wrestler, just to kind of give you guys a little bit of a hint. It was a low ball wrestler. When I say a low ball wrestler, it was a wrestler who didn't do anything with the WWE as far as I know. He did do something with another promotion though. That much I can say. Now that's very vague, but he was definitely a small fry. And I will tell you this much. When it came to that sit-down interview, I'm like, so dude, what are we going to talk about? You know, what do you got? Because I remember, we'll see if I say that, I'll give it away, because we talked about it during the actual interview. But basically, I was like, what do you want to talk about? Like, what do you have that, like, we can get the fans hook, line, and sinker? And long story short, the guy didn't have anything. So I was literally, and when you watch that interview, you'll come away and you're like, damn, yeah, that was pretty fucking weak. The guy didn't really like, and I made a promise to myself from that point going forward that I'm never going to do business with him again, because I just really felt like, I felt as though he was pulling my arm, asking for a favor, and I really didn't like that, especially when he didn't have anything going, no appearances, nothing like that. And I tried to take it for what it was worth, because at that point I was playing around with some new software, so it kind of gave me the opportunity to play around with a couple of things. I can't be very specific, because if I'm even more specific, you guys are kind of going to be able to figure it out. But the Jake Roberts interview would have to be the second other interview that I just walked away saying, damn, I'm like disappointed. And I remember talking to his people, and without revealing too much context, yeah, Jake was not doing well that day. And, they made a vow that, hey, we're going to try to do everything we can to see if we can do the interview. And I just, very rare do I get like, okay, one and done, that's it, I'm not going to go down that route again. But with the way that interview came about, I was like, never again. And I remember like a couple of months down the road, my girl said to me, what are you going to do with that Jake Roberts interview? Because the way I had recorded it at the time, we didn't promote it. This was back on like the old Blog Talk Radio days. Back then, if you wanted to like do an episode, you can be offline and you could just be doing it that way. And unless the person knew the call-in number, there was like a different call-in number. We had like the main show call-in number, and then we had a guest line. So unless you knew the guest line number, your ass was short. The only people that would know how that conversation had went about would be me, Jake, and if one of Jake's peoples was listening to it, then it would be one of Jake's people. So I remember after it was over, I like automatically saved the audio, and I was like, this will never see the light of day. and I had it on my desktop for the longest. I remember like 4, 5, 6 months later, it was like right about the time when Jake Roberts was announced for WWE Hall of Fame induction. And Tammy was like, what are you going to do with that audio now? Like, you got to capitalize. I know you didn't really like the interview, but you're like getting the hang of this editing. Surely there's a way you can edit the audio and salvage what you can salvage, right? And I'm like, it would be a challenge, but yeah, I think I can do it. And I cleaned it up, I salvaged it, and next thing I know, some weird shit had went down where my computer it did something weird, and all the files were lost, including that. So forever, that is a lost episode. Forever, that is a lost episode. And now I kind of wish, in the later years, now I kind of wish that I did put that episode out there on social media, like sharing the links with people so that somebody could maybe salvage the audio, and I could easily just say, hey, anybody remember that, blah, blah, blah. And will I ever have him on the show? I don't know. Never say never. But I haven't quite gotten past that point of what went down several years back to like, okay, let's go ahead, let's do this. So I don't know, guys. But yeah, that was the story of the infamous interview there. How did we get on that particular topic? I'm not really sure. And I see Brendan is bringing up a very good point in the chat here. I am seeing what you guys are saying. Hey, Lee, try to leave a 5-star rating and review on Facebook, but it says there's an error and won't let it go through. That's very interesting. I wonder why that is. It sounds to me like I'm going to have to continue to play around with that setting and figure out exactly what's going on. I'll play with that after the show. Once I'm able to like finally figure that all out, I'll let you guys know. But I find that pretty interesting that it's like not working. How do we get on that whole Jake Roberts thing and the interviews and all that? I'm like trying to remember. Because we were talking about George the Animal Steele. Okay, I'm back in the loop now with you guys. Yeah, so I mean, George the Animal Steele was definitely a guy that I took a liking to. I mean, he was very scary, he was menacing, but I took a liking to him because I could remember being a little kid and like when he would come on my TV, I just stopped what I was doing. I had to look and see what this guy was going to do because he had an unorthodox way of wrestling. You know, it was a style that, like, I never really, before Blanca of Street Fighter became popular, I mean, George the Animal Steele was the Blanca of the WWF back then. I mean, he was just out of the box, and I thought he was a menacing heel back in the day. I mean, once WWE kind of was like, you know what, if we can really make this guy kind of kid friendly and all that, once they kind of went down that route, it kind of killed his whole mystique and all that dramatically. I know it kind of gave him a little bit more longevity, but I actually enjoyed the days when he was a heel, quite honestly. So to find out about his passing, to say I was sad, yes, I was definitely sad, but at the same time, 79 years of age, that's a good, long, healthy life. And, the one thing that I don't really think George the Animal Steele gets a lot of credit for, unlike some of these other wrestlers that's running around right now and, I can't get a job, I can't get a 5-6-figure salary, whatever am I going to do? Well, didn't I work for the WWE about, 35 years ago? I don't think my shoulder has been quite the same since I left them. I think I'm going to go on ahead and try to see if I can take them to court. Yeah, let me try to see if I can file a lawsuit and get some money out of them. I mean, we got all these punk-ass motherfuckers that's running around. Motherfuckers that worked for WWE almost 30, 40 years ago. Motherfuckers that worked for the WWE for like 8 weeks or some shit like that, and they're coming back years later filing a silly ass concussions lawsuit and all that. Just tasteless. Just totally disrespectful. But when you go to a guy like George the Animal Steele, you look up shoot interviews, you look up radio interviews, just leading all the way up to his death. Like, the guy was always consistent. You never saw him involved with these silly ass lawsuits that's flying around nowadays with the WWE. He knew what came with the territory. Every job has its pros. Every job has its respected cons. It's the bitter with the sweet, right? And here you got George the Animal Steele. Okay, look, I want to go into the sport of professional wrestling. Now, bear in mind, he already had his profession down. He was a teacher. But he decided he wanted to do a little bit more than that. He decided he wanted to go into wrestling. He knew the risk. He knew, hey, if I do this, and I go at this really hard, I take this to the point where I'm able to make some really good money off of this, and it's on a full-time basis, my body is probably going to get some wear and tear. No doubt about that. Doesn't matter how safe I try to be. Doesn't matter how much of a good job I do in taking my bumps. When it's all said and done, the more time I put in, the more matches I put in over the years, I'm going to get some serious wear and tear. And he took on that responsibility graciously, responsibly. He took those tasks on. And you didn't see him get involved with all these silly ass lawsuits and all that. So he definitely has my utmost respect from that standpoint. I don't really think that is highlighted enough. Very well liked by Vince McMahon and the Pat Pattersons, the Briscoes. You know, it just goes farther and farther back. I mean, a really good, respected track record. And am I surprised at the type of video package that WWE had composed for George the Animal Steele? No, he was definitely deserving of it, hands down. Now, I'm a little bit perplexed at the fact that the Russian Ivan Koloff did not get a video package. We see like some still image with the text, like, what was it, the second hour of Monday Night Raw, and you're kind of like, yeah, that's kind of cool, I guess, but like, well, maybe they're going to do a video package later on during the night. We'll see what happens. And we never got that video package. And I mean, I'm a big old school fan of wrestling. The Russian Bear, I loved his work. I loved his work. How could you not do a respective video package for Ivan Koloff? I mean, for fuck's sake, we got fucking... This is what I don't understand, the mentality of WWE. It takes you weeks. No, it takes you months to recognize this whole Russian beef that's going on between the USA and Russia. And then it takes you weeks to talk about the whole Russia possibly hacking this year's presidential election, right? So you got Lana, Rusev, and all this other shit, right? And you got Rusev, he's supposed to be from Russia or whatever, or Lana's supposed to be from Russia. So, like, okay, you can go into these areas, no problem, but you can't bring up in detail Ivan Koloff? He is the guy that dethroned Bruno Sammartino. WWE Hall of Famer Bruno Sammartino, a guy that we had on this very show in our first, 2 years that we were on the air. We had him on the show. And you can't give Ivan Koloff the props? I just was shaking my head at that one. That really did not make any sense to me whatsoever. And I thought for sure maybe going into SmackDown tonight, we were going to get it. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, there was a period where I dozed off for about 15 minutes, but I didn't see no video package for Ivan Koloff. So, you know, I hear that. I see that. I'm kind of like, what the fuck? So, and what's really a travesty, Ivan Koloff still not in the WWE Hall of Fame. Yes, you heard me right. Ivan Koloff is still not in the WWE Hall of Fame. Now, I don't know about you guys, but that is a damn shame when I hear that. A damn shame. And it pisses me off when I hear shit like that, because it's like, wait a minute now. All due respect to some of the guys that have been able to go in over the years, but like, wow, Ivan Koloff? Yeah, I mean, if you'd have told me that a couple of years ago, I'd have been like, nah, that's got to be an error. Surely that's an error. That doesn't really make any sense. So, very tell and tell, man. Very tell and tell. But yeah, Ivan Koloff, not in there. You know, when you just go over the list of people that's still not in the WWE Hall of Fame, it's like, what the fuck? I mean, just a few names for you guys. Far as I know, unless otherwise, the Destroyer, still not in the Hall of Fame. Owen Hart, still not in the Hall of Fame. I would like to see this next guy's work be appreciated before something weird happens to him. Paul Heyman. Ray Stevens. If I'm not mistaken, Giant Baba, he's not in there. Dynamite Kid isn't in there. So, I mean, that's just to, you know, really start for you guys. I mean, it's just fucking ridiculous that we still got a lot of people that are not in the WWE Hall of Fame that are definitely deserving of being in the Hall of Fame. Vince McMahon, yeah, he'll definitely be going into the Hall of Fame one day. I'm definitely like, that's a given. That's gonna happen. Haystacks Calhoun, he's still not in there. I'd like to personally see Great Muta go in there. God, there's just a ton of people that is still not in there. That just kind of make you go, wait, who? What? Why? Did they do something wrong? Did they piss somebody off? Why aren't they in the Hall of Fame? So, I gotta digress on that note, man, seriously. So, other than those passings that had went down, we did kind of talk a little bit about Monday Night Raw. I guess we can kind of go there since we're on the topic a bit about Monday Night Raw. I loved how the show, look, let's be honest, Raw this week, boy, was that really hard to get through. I gotta tell you, that was really, really, really hard to get through. It was a very, very difficult show. I found myself like trying to do my very best to stay awake because that show was the drizzling shits, let me tell you. By the way, I appreciate you guys that took part in our Raw Interactive poll. If you want to take part in our Raw Interactive poll, you can do so, as usually we have that poll active right when Raw wraps up. So I had asked you all, what did you think of Raw for this week? And looking at the early votes that we have in right now, we have about 15% that missed it. They decided they're going to skip out on it. 16% felt that it was the drizzles. 32% felt that it was an awesome show. Meanwhile, slightly over with 37% of you felt that it was an average show with a few okay spots. And for those of you that are a little bit curious how SmackDown is doing so far, early votes that are in right now, you can see it. That's one of the last tweets I put out. Right now, SmackDown has majority of 60% saying that it was an awesome show and they beat it WWE Raw for this week. With regards to Raw, it was definitely the drizzles. Very, very challenging to stay through for those whole 3 hours. Nothing suspenseful, nothing impactful. There was no gravitas. I mean, other than the opening segment with Kevin Owens, which I really loved. I really loved the opening segment with Kevin Owens because to see him in the middle of the ring, the spotlight's on him, I instantly got goosebumps for the simple fact, and I know this was probably the case for a lot of you guys that has been watching the WWE product for a long period of time, but it reminded me so much of when Eddie Guerrero had finally turned on Rey Mysterio. I mean, these guys went back as far as like WCW and all that, and just to see their relationship really strengthen and blossom while they both were in the WWE, it was an awesome freaking moment to really take in. I mean, that was scripting at its finest, because you just couldn't help but go, damn, what the hell is going on? Like why the hell is Eddie Guerrero doing it? And I still remember it vividly to this very day. And just to make sure that I did remember it very vividly, I actually found myself on the WWE network like shortly after Raw had wrapped up, because I was trying to look for the moment, and I remembered it right. It was there was a beatdown as Chavo Guerrero, John Morrison, and what was the other guy? Mercury, Eminem, basically. They all were beating the crap out of Rey Mysterio. And I mean, it was a serious 3-on-1 beatdown, and it was on an episode of SmackDown. And we see Eddie Guerrero, he runs in there for the save, and everybody's like, Eddie, Eddie. I mean, they're loving it, they're happy. And you see Eddie, he's looking at Rey like, dude, are you okay, man? And we see Rey Mysterio, he's kind of looking at him like, hey, little buddy. Oh, man, thank you so much for helping me, man. Thank you so much. I owe you one, man. And they embracing the hug. And Eddie's looking at him. He's smiling at him. He's like, yeah, no problem, man. And wham, clothesline. And he just stomps on him. I mean, just letting loose on that Latino heat. He just stomping a mud hole in his ass. And it was always awesome seeing Rey Mysterio get beat up like that, because anytime you get to see Rey Mysterio, the way I can describe a good Rey Mysterio beatdown is like the Spider-Man comics. Like, Spider-Man has been like in a serious fight, and his costume's getting all fucked up, he's bleeding and all that. Every time you see Rey Mysterio, like, man, the biggest little underdog is getting tore up. But I mean, Eddie Guerrero just like destroyed the hell out of him. I remember they took the fight outside of the ring, and Eddie just continued to do a serious number on him, running his head into the steel ring posts, then bringing the action back in the ring. Rey was actually busted open like a stuffed pig. I mean, you saw a partial of his face, just like fucking Spider-Man when he's been in a serious fight. And the crowd was just like, oh, and they were booing. They did not like what they were seeing. And just to see Rey Mysterio get the living shit kicked out of him back then, I mean, you just got to do the time warp. You would have had to actually been living in that moment. It was like, wow, we never thought we'd see this, because it was so fucking devastating what Eddie was doing to this guy. And it pretty much had culminated with Eddie Guerrero grabbing some steel steps, and he grabbed Rey Mysterio. He actually grabbed him by the leg, drug his ass out, and then he like carried him over to the top of the steel steps. I mean, Rey was just out of it too, mind you. I mean, he's out of it, right? Eddie did not care. He picked him up, did a nice stalling back. What was it? What was it? A back suplex? Yeah, he did a stalling back suplex onto the top of the steel steps, and that was pretty much it. And the crowd was just booing the hell out of Eddie Guerrero. There was just so much silence, a lot of shock, a lot of awe, and SmackDown just went off with Eddie Guerrero just staring off into the sunset like, I did it. Gotta do like that Dave Matthews Band song. I did it. Guilty as charged. That was an awesome moment. That is like worth going on the WWE network to see in its entirety, quite honestly, because it was just like so left field. And when you look at the foundation that Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio had laid down, Rey Mysterio had talked about it in later years after Eddie had passed. And he basically said, the way that me and Eddie had thought about this, in all honesty, it was actually Eddie's idea. And, we thought for the longest time it would be awesome if the two of us could have like a dream match feud, but we needed it to be told on a big scale, and we felt that WWE was definitely the place, but it was getting to that point and trying to come up with the right storyline that could really help, get us to that point. So this was like part of a phase that ultimately culminated in that 2005 feud where they were both fighting for custody of Dominic. If you guys don't know about that one, you got to look that up in itself, in its entirety. But that was like, I enjoyed the hell out of that program that they have for the custody of Dominic. One of the first times that we were actually introduced to Vicky Guerrero. And just awesome. But that's what the whole Kevin Owens betraying Chris Jericho, and then this week on Raw, seeing Kevin Owens in the middle of the ring, that's what it reminded me a lot of. And I was kind of like, oh, this is fucking badass. And I love the fact that Kevin Owens really did not make any mention of Jericho. He pretty much was like, oh, and Chris Jericho? And he just dropped the mic. It didn't even, I loved it for the simple point. It reminded me so much of the Guerrero, Rey Mysterio angle. And it was much needed. I kept telling you guys off and on the past couple of weeks, Kevin Owens is missing like that one smoking ace that will make you go, okay, Owens, Goldberg, I'm behind this. And I love the fact that through the higher ups in WWE, the story that they were able to display, and Kevin Owens verbally saying to us this week, this is going to be a long match, Goldberg. You're not going to be able to go in here and 30, 90 seconds, jackhammer, spear. No. I'm going to do everything in my power to outsmart you, because history has shown, Bill Goldberg, that the longer a match goes and you're in it, the more weaker, the more exposed you become. And he basically told Bill Goldberg, this ring, as far as I'm concerned, and all of its environment surrounding it is at my disposal. All I got to do is outlast you, and that is ultimately how I will defeat you. I love that story that they basically were telling, because I'm sure that there was a lot of anxiety amongst fans wondering how exactly are we going to get into this Bill Goldberg Kevin Owens match, because what's the guarantee that we have? Now, some people may take a snicker and they may say, yeah, Lee, Kevin Owens will probably be able to take it up 5 minutes, then the match will be over, right? But if you ask me, for my perspective, my gut instinct, I have a feeling that this match will go, minus the entrances, I have a feeling that this match will possibly go almost 14 minutes long. I'm not willing to commit to 15, but I have a feeling that this match will go almost 14 minutes long. Definitely. I can see a lot of I don't want to say this and then you guys go, wait a minute, did you just, no. But what I want you to think about is the infamous matchups that Ric Flair and Ricky the Dragon Steamboat had over the years. Remember how in a lot of their classic bouts, there would be a lot of stalling, a lot of circling around the ring. Ric Flair wasn't quite ready. He'd get out of the damn ring just to tease his opponent a little bit. I can see Kevin Owens almost kind of doing something like that to a certain extent, quite honestly. So we'll talk a little bit more about that when I offer ideas, bookings, predictions for Fastlane on next week's show. But I love that. That was really fucking awesome. And it was much needed, because Kevin Owens really needed the edge to seriously go into this match at Fastlane against Goldberg for the title. So I thoroughly had enjoyed that. See, some other stuff that came about. You know what? We got to go there, man. We got to go there. One of my many beefs with WWE Raw this week, and I got to take a sip of my nice Kahlua beverage here. Just bear with me a second, guys. Oh, that is good stuff. So, I have a problem with the fact that nowhere during the course of this 3 hours for Raw, we did not get any Chris Jericho health update. We didn't get anything. We didn't even at least get, as you would imagine, based on the replay that we showed you from last week, Kevin Owens did a serious number on Chris Jericho. We have tried reaching out to Chris Jericho's family to see how he's doing, but they're refusing to talk to us at this time. We can only speculate how Chris Jericho is doing, but we're going to keep at it, and any new information that we get with regards to Chris Jericho's health, if it's in between the shows this week, we'll break the news to you all first on our WWE.com website. You would think that they would at least go in that direction, but they did not. And it's I am such a sucker for fine detail. I am such a sucker for storyline continuity. Don't just pretend like the guy doesn't exist. I mean, don't get me wrong. What Kevin Owens did, that was impactful and everything, but you kind of got to follow that up, shortly afterwards, next segment or something like that. Sometime before the damn show is out, you got to revisit that. So the fact that there was no Chris Jericho update, I really was not feeling that. Bipolar Stephanie McMahon returned. We kept hearing this tease all week long that Bayley was possibly going to be relinquishing the WWE Women's title, that basically maybe a scenario was going to come about where possibly Charlotte was going to win it back, or maybe the title was going to remain vacant, and that basically there was going to be some type of a triple threat or a fatal four-way at WrestleMania for the strap. We kept hearing all these rumblings, and then we finally go into Raw this week, and we got Stephanie McMahon. She basically calls out Bayley, says to her, hey, look, I know all your entire life you worked so hard for this moment. You worked really hard to become the WWE Women's Champion. I mean, the first step was getting to the WWE, which you were able to accomplish, but to actually be able to win the women's title, and you just trace back the history of all the great women that have held titles in this company over the years, to be in the same conversation with them. I'm sure you're on cloud nine right now, but look at the circumstances surrounding how you won this WWE Raw Women's title. Do you really want it to be that tainted? Yada, 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 yada. Do you really want to set your legacy as a champion off this way? And I'm kind of going, well, wait a minute now. Bipolar Stephanie McMahon, where were you all those times that Charlotte was fucking cheating and doing whatever she needed to do? All of a sudden, we're going to bring up the whole moral compass, right? This is the inconsistency that I'm talking about. This is the stupidity booking 101 that I speak of when it comes to Raw. You don't really see too much storyline stupidity on SmackDown, but on Raw, almost guaranteed each week you get that. And I don't know about you guys, but it's becoming very redundant, and it's like, WWE, come on now. Really? Come on. It's not that hard. So to have Bipolar Stephanie McMahon say this whole spiel, right? Now I tell you how they could have justified that. That whole segment with what Stephanie McMahon was saying. You could have had Bayley say to Stephanie, all due respect, Mrs. McMahon, but you wouldn't by chance be trying to get me to cough up this title. You wouldn't happen to try to talk me out of this title, because, I mean, let's be honest, you and me haven't exactly seen eye to eye over these past couple of months. I can only imagine that maybe there's a part of you that has a little bit of disgust, a little bit of disdain that I'm a WWE Women's Champion now, because if we're going to talk about doing the right thing, where were you in all those times that Charlotte cheated to retain her title in my match or in Sasha Banks' matches? And Stephanie McMahon could have easily came right back and said, you know what? That is a very valid point. You're right. Honestly, myself and the general manager, Mick Foley, we dropped the ball. You're absolutely right. We hope that going in the future that we can run this ship a little bit tighter with regards to that. But no, Bailey, I'm genuinely speaking woman to woman, just seeing, understanding your story more. I'm just trying to connect to you. Surely you don't want your title run to begin like this with such great controversy. That's how you bridge the gap of storyline continuity, plugging all your fucking gaps and all that, making sure that we as fans, and I keep telling you guys this, that's why I like a really good show like The Walking Dead, because it doesn't matter if it's the first season, it doesn't matter if you're coming in just now for the 7th season, and I can't tell you how many people who never jumped on the Walking Dead bandwagon before, how many of them checked out that very first episode of season 7, because all they knew about was Negan, and they instantly got hooked. So now on top of watching the new episodes, now they're trying to go back and get caught up to speed. But that's the thing, and I've been saying that over the past couple of months, when you have a show like The Walking Dead, and how they brilliantly throw that fucking carrot at you. Okay, here's the subject. Here's what we're going to be tackling this week. Here's all the sub-chapters that basically connect to this main chapter, this main subject that we're going to be tackling during this episode. And along the way, we're going to plant these little seeds to do our best to make you stick around to see how Act 1 opens up, how Act 2 opens up, how Act 3 opens up. We're going to take you through the journey of what is going on with every action that results in a reaction and the consequences of those reactions. And once the episode is over, you are left with such like, well, that was satisfying, but then at the same time, you've got the hook, line, sinker for why you need to come back and check out next week's episode. Simple writing, not that hard. And WWE just continues to drop the ball with inconsistent storylines, with inconsistency in these characters. And it makes no sense to me. I mean, you would think that with a woman like Stephanie McMahon in such a high position that she's in, would be able to put her foot down and say, wait a minute, this doesn't really make any sense because my character, let's really be for real. You've got actors, doesn't matter if it's veteran actors, doesn't matter if it's established actors, you've got actors when they are told, look, do what you need to do with this role. You won the part. Do what you need to do to make it yours. A lot of it is all about improv. Hey, I don't think Billy would say something like this. Just kind of really getting a good feel. Let me run this by you. Wouldn't it make a little bit more sense if Billy said this and the body language was actually like this instead, rather than, oh yeah, let's go ahead, let's try it your way. Go ahead. So like, is this really like what it's all about? I'm really kind of getting the impression it's just like Stephanie and key other individuals. They just have their fucking, okay, I got my bullet points. I'm just going to go out there. Really kind of comes off it's more about just getting in that FaceTime in front of the cameras as opposed to really helping the talent that's there on a weekly basis, putting in the in-ring work, making them evolve. That's how it just really comes off. It really comes off very selfish, I must say. I was definitely happy, though, that Bayley did not cough up that women's title. I was looking for Stephanie McMahon to do something kind of jaded, say something messed up, but that actually did not happen. So I was kind of a little bit perplexed with that one, but it was what it was. So basically that had set up, if I'm not mistaken, Sasha Banks. Yeah, she actually had came out, tried to convince what's her name, Bayley, not to do that. And what else had went down? That led to a match. It actually had led to Sasha Banks taking on Charlotte, because we did see Charlotte. She came out and she was trying to see if Bayley would cough up the title as well, but once it all didn't play out, Sasha issued a challenge to Charlotte saying, hey, look, my knee's actually 100% now. I can actually give it a go. So they had a good matchup, but it's like you've seen it once. You don't see these two girls go at it way too many times over the past 5-6 months. Sasha Banks picking up the win on that one. Sami Zayn have fought Kevin Owens. Owens thought he had the night off. Mick Foley told him he was in a match. Owens had warned Mick Foley, hey man, you better be careful with some of these people you're having me go up against, because just as how deadly I was to some people in the ring, I can be as deadly back here. So you might have a lot of bodies on your hands. You better be careful. So we saw Kevin Owens win that one. One of the last few moments of the night, we saw a very interesting exchange between Stephanie McMahon and Mick Foley. Stephanie had asked where was Foley when the whole Bayley-Sasha Banks thing was going on. Basically, Stephanie telling Mick, look, I felt kind of disrespected out there. Foley admitted, hey, I was watching back here, and I enjoyed every single minute of it. I love seeing you in that position. And Stephanie had informed Mick Foley that the way he was behaving these past couple of weeks has been on the grounds of being insubordinate. And he tells her straight up he wants her to stop treating him like he's stupid, and that he's trusted her, he's believed in her, and that now he kind of feels that all is being broken right now. And he goes on his little tirade talking about Samoa Joe being brought in, saying, hey, look, I told you guys about Samoa Joe far back as 2004. And I always told you all he belongs here in the WWE, that you all need to try to get him in here, but to have it go down this way is just not right. And Samoa Joe just really was not happy with the whole Samoa Joe. Now Seth Rollins is possibly going to be missing another WrestleMania. Wasn't really feeling as though Stephanie's greed is really what's getting in the way. And pretty much Stephanie says to Mick Foley, hey, look, you better watch where you're stepping. Wouldn't want anything bad to happen to you. So that was kind of like a warning shot right there, that Mick Foley better tread lightly in how he talks to her. So you kind of wonder if now the seeds are being planted officially, where we're kind of seeing the final days of Mick Foley. I kind of wonder how this is going to play out. Is Mick Foley going to, because he's supposed to get that hip surgery. So is he maybe going to get taken out by Samoa Joe? Is maybe Kevin Owens going to possibly take him out? How's that going to go down? And we saw Brock Lesnar in an awesome backstage segment. I put the tweet out there. It was very simple. I said, man, how would you like to get paid $5 million a year just to look at a camera and not utter a damn word? That's pretty much what we had got with the Brock Lesnar segment. I'm not complaining. I told you guys, whenever WWE has access to Brock Lesnar, when they bring him into the arena, tape those segments. Do like the old AWA days. Just tape weeks worth of backstage segments, interviews, all that. That way you can stretch it out over the course of several episodes. I had no problem with this. I loved it. I love that Paul Heyman was basically back there just taking the hot seat on behalf of Michael Cole, as Heyman's just looking at the camera, smirking and nodding his head the whole time. Heyman says, in a nutshell, he believes Owens will shock the world at Fastlane, and that he has a chance to take the title to WrestleMania, but that his client Brock Lesnar disagrees, basically saying that if Goldberg does take the title to Mania, it will just be another thing for Lesnar to conquer along with Goldberg's health. So that was a pretty awesome moment. Main event, I'm skipping over a lot of the snoozer moments. I'm only talking about the moments that I really, really had enjoyed. So for me, Big Show, Braun Strowman. I mean, my God, here we are in 2017, and Raw ends with a Big Show main event. And the fans are loving it. They're chanting, this is awesome. They're really into this. I gotta tell you, and I was talking to some friends of mine on Facebook, on my personal page, the other night as we were watching this main event. And we all were just pretty much in awe over Braun Strowman, especially me. Like, I reminded them, I said, remember how I was when I first laid eyes on Dave Bautista, and I was like, that's money, and y'all were like, yep, that's money, and look what happened to him. Braun Strowman just continues to impress the hell out of me. Just when I think I have seen him at his peak as far as in-ring ability, the guy just busts out these new moves that did not come off jagged, it didn't come off botchy, didn't come off sluggish. It was like, yeah, I've been doing this all along. Yeah, for years now. Where you been? I mean, just smooth as hell. I mean, that was a really good opponent for him to play around with in the big show. I mean, the fans were really eating this up. And I love the pacing. I love the psychology of this match. I loved it tremendously. I love the finish. I mean, it pretty much took not one scoop up power body slam. I mean, it basically took like 2 of those damn power slams for Braun Strowman to pick up the win. And I love how WWE booked it immediately after Braun got the 1, 2, 3, because it's like before he can even rejoice in the victory, and basically the fans are like taking part in that as well. We get fucking Roman Reigns, because Roman Reigns spoiling for a fight still against Braun. Music of Roman hits, the fans are booing the hell out of Roman. These two behemoths, they're going at it once again. Braun stops Roman Reigns. He stops the spear with a nice big drop kick. I mean, that was a damn good, pretty drop kick too. Braun scooped him up, did a power slam to him in the middle of the ring, and that's pretty much how Raw had ended. I mean, that was a really fucking awesome spot right there, man. Loved it tremendously. Got a nice little chuckle out of the whole Russian hack thing with New Day, Tender My Balls, Rusev, but I thought the segment was just long drawn out. I thought it was a bit outdated. Definitely thought it was a little bit silly as well. I, for one, am a little bit tired of the New Day. I gotta be honest. I'm really, really tired of the New Day. Am I happy, though, that they're hosting this year's WrestleMania? Yeah, because, look, I have been a firm believer for many years that WWE needs to really start embracing the talent that they have on their roster, that's putting in the time respectfully, that's getting over with the fans. And, hey, if it's a situation where they're bringing in good merchandise sales as a result, if they're bringing in the ticket sales at the gates, you got to reward that. And quite honestly, I think for all the time and the work that the New Day have been putting in all these, maybe 18 months now, I think it's awesome that they get to host WrestleMania 33. I have no problem with it. I know some other people may but me personally, I don't have a problem with it, because if it means we can finally really begin to get to that point where we don't have to rely so much on the Stone Colds, the Shawn Michaels, the Dwayne The Rock Johnsons, and all the other, big name people. If we can finally really get to that point where we can really rely on the talent that's currently there, putting in the time and the energy, that's what I want ultimately. So this is really a nice, good step for me, and it's definitely proving grounds for the New Day. This is a really good challenge. It's a really good experiment for them, because if they can really throw it down and represent, they're going to open up a really nice Pandora's box of nothing but good things to come, as far as I personally feel. So other than that, I mean, that pretty much was Raw for this week. I am still playing around with the Facebook thing. So I actually had my girl and I tried it myself to see what was going on. And we're kind of noticing the same glitches because this isn't the first time. I've actually had a few people now say to me, since I wrote it out over the weekend, that they're getting some type of an error. So I'm not sure what I did wrong at my end, respectfully. I may have to reach out to some buddies before I maybe go after Facebook customer service and try to see what the heck is going on, because I'm still trying to figure out my way through this. And, Brendan, I appreciate the kind words, but, once I figure this all out, I can't stress it enough to you guys that's great that you all think that the show is worthy of a 5-star rating, but guess what? If that type of stuff ain't being translated on Facebook and other platforms, it really don't mean nothing, because nowadays, in this day and age, a lot of folks care about the ratings, they care about the reviews, they want to really know if it's something that they should really make the investment in checking out and all that. So I'm feeling still kind of alert, still wide awake. My melatonin hasn't kicked in just yet. I think after I get done with the show, I'll definitely go ahead, I'll play around with that and try to see if I can get that resolved finally. But let's continue on with the show. SmackDown, we saw that go off not too long ago. Excuse me. And I love the rematch for the... I guess you could say it was a rematch, so to speak. But this go round, it was for the WWE SmackDown Women's title. And that was against Alexa Bliss and Becky Lynch. Now, some of you guys may be going, wait a minute, Lee, what happened to Naomi? Well, unfortunately, Naomi had got a little bit of a boo-boo at the pay-per-view, apparently. News to me. But, yeah, she messed up her knee pretty bad, and it looks as though she's possibly going to be missing out on WrestleMania. So, for sure, she's going to be missing the next 30 days. And the way that they set it up for tonight, they had Daniel Bryan strip her of the SmackDown Women's title. Naomi vowing that fans, the entire women's roster, has not seen the last of her, and that when she comes back, she's going to make sure that everybody feels the glow. I gotta say, that really came left field. I was not expecting that to go down, but it did. So Alexa Bliss, when it's all said and done, she became a 2-time SmackDown Women's Champion. She did a nice cross chop, throat cut kind of thing, kind of jab Becky Lynch in the throat with a little X cross chop. It was really cool how she did it, and that pretty much had set her up to get a roll up pin on Becky Lynch, grabbing a nice good handful of tights, got the 1-2-3 that way. Again, Alexa Bliss, 2-time SmackDown's Women's Champion now. Other than that, as far as like any other key points for tonight's SmackDown, it was, I hate to say this about SmackDown, because usually SmackDown hits a home fucking run, but a lot of the matches that we got tonight, it honestly, it didn't really do anything for me. We saw Breezango, American Alpha. I really didn't care for that. Now, however, there was a awesome Falls Count Anywhere match between Nikki Bella and Natalya. I enjoyed that thoroughly. Really awesome match. I thought what the girls did at that respected pay-per-view. What was it? What was it that the girls did at their respective pay-per-view? Elimination Chamber. I thought the match that they had there was really on fucking point, but I mean, Nikki Bella just pulling out all the stops. Man, you got to go back and watch this match, man. There was one cool spot that I really had enjoyed, which I had mentioned on Twitter. It was a spot where Nikki Bella and Natty were fighting on top of a wall barrier in front of the fans. And Natty was acting as though she was getting ready to do like a superplex to Nikki, and it didn't go down that way. Luckily, Nikki had blocked it and all that, and sent Natty kind of off to the sides for a little bit, and then she did like enziguri off of the top wall barrier. And once she does it, as she's going over to Natty, you can hear Natty clear as day. That was good. And you're like, oh, alright, so that got Natty's approval. Okay, great. But no, Nikki was really fucking throwing it down. I mean, this girl was taking some serious and brutal fucking bumps during this match. I mean, so was Natty, but more so Nikki. I love the story that was being told. I love the overall psychology of this one, right down to the point. There was a part where we see Nikki Bella, she's trying to go for a table, and she's saying to the fans, huh, how about a table, huh, and the crowd, they're like, yeah! And Natty stops her, and, they go back and forth, and several minutes later, Natty's now looking at the table. She touches it, and she says to the fans, y'all want some table? Y'all want some wood? And they're like, yeah. And she acts like she's getting ready to pull it out, and she just pushes it back under the ring and says, nah. And that got her some boos. That got her some heckles. So I just love that fucking ring psychology right there, because we have seen many situations where we've seen heels forget that they're heels and they actually play to the crowd, and it's like, no, you're not supposed to do that. So Nikki, Natty, they definitely threw it down in that match. I loved it. Closing moments of it, there was a critical moment where the action went backstage. We see Natty go Marty Jannetty head first into a mirror. Shades of the barbershop segment. And as all this is going on, Nikki somehow inadvertently bumped into Maurice. Sent Maurice flying. So somehow after the backstage segment, they take it back outside the ring down to the ramp area. Looks as though Nikki has a good hand on Natty. Looks like the match is now coming down to the final few seconds. Winner's about to probably go in favor of Nikki. My Nickies and my Natties, I'm doing a good job staying on top of these girls' names, man, because like Nikki, Natty, Nikki. Maurice just comes out of nowhere with a steel pipe and just goes to the body of Nikki, which pretty much helps Natty set up the win. She basically got the win that way, and I didn't exactly agree with that because it just kind of came off very anticlimactic, so to speak. So, but now it kind of looks as though Nikki's attention is now going to go to Maurice, and this just kind of reaffirms and reconfirms what a lot of fans have been saying the past couple of weeks, which is kind of like, oh, fuck, is it really going to be an intergender match? Is it really going to be Maurice and Miz taking on Cena and Nikki Bella? Is that really the direction that we're going? And that's kind of the way that it looks to be going, especially when you go to that 30-man battle royal. I wish it was a 10-man battle royal between Baron Corbin, AJ Styles, John Cena, Miz, Dean Ambrose, Dolph Ziggler, Apollo Crews, Kalisto, Mojo Rawley, and Luke Harper. Closing moments of this respected matchup. We thought maybe Cena was possibly gonna. Nope. We saw AJ Styles. He was going to work on Cena. Managed to dump him to the apron. Ziggler also gets into the apron, but they both managed to survive. Crews and Mojo double team the Miz. AJ gets triple teamed on. Meanwhile, Harper tries to dump Corbin. Ambrose catches Ziggler's DDT, puts him down on the apron. Corbin works on Harper in the corner for a little bit. We saw Ambrose chop Kalisto down. Ziggler ended up mounting Harper in the corner. Corbin now drops Cena with a right. And we ended up seeing dual chants for Cena. For Cena and Corbin, if I'm not mistaken. And as Miz is working on Mojo in the corner, Cena goes for an attitude adjustment on Corbin, but he can't connect. As then Corbin goes to work on the Miz. They took a commercial break after that moment. So here's where Cena gets like the exit. We see Cena and AJ, they're trading shots in the middle of the ring. AJ counters the double AA, or you could just say double A. Harper super kicks Cena. AJ then connects with a Pele kick on Corbin. And as that's going down, Ambrose ends up dropping Corbin with a clothesline after chaos in the middle of the ring. And we see Miz, he's mocking Daniel Bryan and hits the corner with a drop kick on Harper. And as all that is going down, we see Corbin pull Ambrose from under the bottom rope, lays him out with the end of days onto the floor. Corbin leaves as Ambrose is still in the match. So yeah, Corbin did get eliminated. Miz did get eliminated, but he ended up re-entering the ring and tossed Cena out. Cena gets eliminated that way. So that's kind of how it's looking right now. It's really looking as though we're going to get that intergender tag match. I'm not really sure what to make of that. If you ask me for my honest opinion right now, in a nutshell, maybe it'll change in a couple of days. But the way I kind of feel right now, I feel as though Miz and Cena deserve better. That's just honestly how I feel. Two of the hardest working guys in the WWE that's been putting in the time respectfully day in and day out, and they're being reduced to this. I mean, the only thing I can hope for is a really riveting story arc to really get me to sink my teeth into it, as well as you all that may be kind of like, I don't really know about this one. But that's just how I feel right now. I really do hope that changes in the next couple of days. Maybe if I see how the foundation is laid on next week's SmackDown, maybe I'll feel a little bit different. But right now, I'm not really feeling it. It came down to Luke Harper, AJ Styles. We pretty much had a fuck finish, as supposedly both of them went over the apron at the same time, when it was like clear as day that Harper had touched the mat first. And then AJ followed. I believe I have that right. But it was definitely like obvious, like, hey, what the hell? Show the instant replay footage. What the hell? So Daniel Bryan comes out and he's like, okay, so this match has ended in a no contest. It's like a draw, but this will be resolved next week. So basically, Harper and AJ Styles are going to be fighting each other one-on-one. Fans were not feeling that. They booed the hell out of that. This was just, it was stupid. It was just stupid. Just stupid booking. Just as stupid as this whole Battle Royal thing. I mean, they had 2 weeks to do a nice little tournament. Like I said last week, bring in a couple of people for one-off appearances for this whole little tournament thing, and they could have done it that way. Why blow your load in one episode? Don't quite understand that. I just don't comprehend that. Makes no sense to me when you're 40 days away from WrestleMania. You couldn't stretch it out 2 weeks? I mean, you ended up stretching it out 2 weeks, but did you really need to do a 10-man battle royal? You couldn't just do a tournament throughout the night to try to keep people glued to their seats for the qualifying matches? This could have been the one time, actually, that they could have brought back King of the Ring to try to figure out who was going to be the number one contender to go to WrestleMania. If there was ever a time to do a King of the Ring edition, you could have did it on the next 2 weeks of SmackDown, quite honestly. So they kind of dropped the ball with that one when it's all said and done. So right after Raw had went off the air, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and his production company, $7, in case you guys had missed it, they are working on that Paige movie about her entire life, her family, her career, coming into wrestling and everything. And they had a really cool moment because Raw had came to us this week from the Staples Center in Los Angeles, California. And I actually have some California news for you guys in a little bit. Hopefully I'll remember, because it's something wrestling related I want to relate to you guys. But yeah, they were filming a very important scene. Basically the night that Paige had became the Divas champion, and Tia Trinidad was being brought in. You may recognize her. She was a former TNA knockout. She was brought in to portray the role of AJ Lee. And Rock was telling them what was going on with the scene, what they were going to be filming and all that, and how he wanted them to get all nice and lived up, nice and amped up for it. And the fans started chanting CM Punk. Now, WWE, they've put a lot of copyright strikes out there, so you may not be able to see it now unless there were some pretty slick, crafty bastards that were able to get it and download it, and they got it on Daily Motion or whatnot now. But you can see the chants. The Rock, he literally pulls out his cell phone and he actually calls CM Punk. He gets CM Punk's voicemail. Turns out CM Punk was tied up. He was doing something. And he leaves CM Punk a voicemail message, and he basically says, hey man, I'm here at Staples Center right now. You know, we're filming this movie about Paige, and man, we got like 15,000 strong here that's chanting your name, man. You know, they miss you. I want you to feel this, man. Take this moment in, man. This is for you, man. Come on, man. And I love that. Now, you don't need wrestling websites to tell you, oh, Triple H and Vince McMahon and Stephanie McMahon, they were pretty upset over what had happened. No shit, they probably were upset over what had happened. But guess what? That's Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. This guy has had a long history of going off the grid. He has his bullet points, but where he sees there's room to just be spontaneous, he goes for that throat. He goes for it. He loves taking those types of opportunities. So for The Rock to take that opportunity to do that, I think a couple of things. Number one, I think when it's all said and done, The Rock is a very smart man. The Rock knows deep down in his heart, man, look, we're doing this scene with Paige, and it's supposed to involve AJ Lee, and we don't have access to the real deal because WWE, look, they're being all butthurt about what went down with CM Punk. Okay, whatever. Not to mention, we've got like when AJ Lee really started to rise in the company, part of that had to do with a very important story arc with CM Punk. So it's like, how are you going to get around that? You somehow got to acknowledge CM Punk. So you got to show the man. You can't just bypass that whole chapter and pretend like that shit doesn't exist. So you got to acknowledge that. So for The Rock to do what he did, I thought it was a ballsy move. And then at the same time, you know, it just made me respect The Rock even more. It's like just when I think like I've reached my peak and how much respect I have for The Rock, the guy always surprises me. Honestly, I had no problem with what The Rock had did because it was almost like a nice way of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson kind of throwing an olive branch, so to speak, and saying, hey, look, man, y'all need to get together. Let this shit be bygones already, man. Come on. Enough time has passed. You know, come on. Let's get together for the fans again. Let's do this for the fans. That's what it's all about. So I actually, you know, really appreciated The Rock doing that kind gesture. And Punk, he definitely was feeling the love. He put out a simple tweet saying, you know, thank you, Staples Center, for the love. Much appreciated. Something to that effect. So, but you know, this movie is going to be very interesting. I can't wait to see when it comes out because I'm just very curious. Like, okay, so you are casting the role of AJ Lee for Tia Trinidad. Okay, that's great. But like, how are you going to address the whole CM Punk thing? Because that was a very critical story arc in AJ Lee's rise to ultimately becoming one of the longest reigning Diva champions. So I'm really curious. And then I know it's not so much about AJ Lee. I know it's mainly about Paige. So, of course, that's just, you know, one kind of... But I would like to think that there's probably... Well, I guess they could if you really think about it in a nutshell. There could be ways they could kind of, you know, dance around it and all that. Because now that I'm really kind of thinking about it, I got so caught up in the whole AJ Lee thing. Forgive me, I thought for a second the movie was about AJ Lee. Sometimes, look, maybe I had a little bit too much Kahlua tonight. Maybe I need to put that shit down. But I thought that was a good moment that The Rock did. But I think the point that I was really trying to make was, where does this story with Paige end? Like, is it going to culminate in her becoming the Divas champion for the first time? Or, you know, is it going to end with her and Alberto Del Rio getting engaged? Because I think they're supposed to get married in the next couple of months. I think in the next 3 months or something like that. So I'm not really sure where the hell they're going to go with that. But I thought it was a really, really ballsy move by The Rock. I really, really did. I looked at it nothing more than Rock just kind of indulging the fans and then at the same time trying to be spontaneous while also at the same time trying to throw an olive branch to Punk and, you know, try to get the ball rolling again. And sometimes it takes little moments like that, but it obviously comes off as though not enough time has healed all wounds just yet. Maybe for Punk a little bit to an extent, but for WWE, probably not. But it is what it is, man. But I thought that was a really awesome moment to have heard about. So we ain't got that much showtime left. Let's go right at it, man. So one thing that jumped out at me in my mind that I'm not going to spend several minutes talking about, but I want to make a very valid point. And that is, I see TNA Wrestling is very interested in bringing back to the company Nick Aldis, aka Magnus. They're very interested in bringing him back to the company. Now, for you all that recall, when he left TNA Wrestling, he said he left somewhat on really good terms with the company. And I don't mean somewhat like, it was kind of, no. He left on good terms with TNA Wrestling. When it was all said and done, when it came time to renegotiate his contract, basically, they really couldn't afford him. And they tried to restructure the deal, and at the same time, it was kind of like, well, we really aren't quite sure at this juncture what direction to take your character in, so we're a little bit at a stalemate, and pretty much it just was up in the air like that. Magnus met all his commitments, tied up all loose ends with the company, and that pretty much was it. Did some stuff for Global Force Wrestling, also did some stuff at some other promotions. I know he did some work over at my good buddy Titus Machiavelli's promotion, Rocky Pro Wrestling, and great experience apparently what had went down there. So TNA is now interested in trying to bring him back in. I'm not really sure how I feel about that. Now, I mean, on the one hand, when you go to TNA Wrestling, they're only doing a handful of shows over the course of weeks. They're taping a bunch of shows on like 3-4 days, and that pretty much ties them for the next like 3 months or something like that. So, I mean, on the one hand, you're kind of like, well, it's easy money. You're not like going all over the world. That's cool and everything. Yeah, that might work, but there's a part of me that wants to see Magnus get in the WWE. And there's a part of me that wants to see him get involved with the WWE for one thing and one thing only. I want to see him get involved with the WWE United Kingdom division, because I know pretty soon they're supposed to be getting their own respected TV show. Now, look, I don't know if that would mean Mickie James and Magnus, they would have to have a serious heart-to-heart talk, because if I'm not mistaken, they do not live outside of North America right now. I could be mistaken on that one. So, but just, calling me being a little bit selfish, I'm just thinking about like some much needed star power that UK WWE show could use right about now. And he's still very young, 30 years of age. He's at his peak right now as far as in-ring work goes. So I would personally love to see him get involved with the WWE, and I think it's kind of awesome that Mickie James is in the company at the right place at about the right time right now. And who knows, maybe in a couple of months, maybe he can be down there. But I mean, for right now, I would hope that if Magnus is going to be doing something with TNA Wrestling again, that maybe it's something short term. Maybe they can do some type of a verbal agreement deal, and he basically commits to like 90 days or like maybe 4 months. Don't let it be a long-term lockup deal. I really would not even commit to 6 months, quite honestly. That's really pushing it. I would commit to maybe 4 months and then call it a damn day and reevaluate things, sit down, talk with the family, and that's really the sound advice that I would try to give him right now. But I mean, Magnus and Mickie James, they've only been married for about almost 2 years now, so that marriage is still relatively young, and can they survive if he were to come to the WWE and he were to be part of that whole UK thing? Could he or would maybe he be better off in NXT? I mean, either way, the talents the caliber and talent of a guy like Magnus, Nick Aldis, definitely would greatly be appreciated under the WWE umbrella when it's all said and done. Even ROH, quite honestly. So I thought that was kind of interesting that had came about this week. And I see Finn Balor has been advertised for some WWE live events. Special shout out to those of you all that's going to be in the following areas, as this will be your opportunity to see Finn Balor first time since he went out on injury at 2016's SummerSlam. He is going to be showing up in Buffalo, New York on March 10th. That's going to be followed up with Toronto on March 11th. And it wraps up in White Plains, New York on March 26th. So very interesting right there. Also, while we're talking WWE events, if y'all are going to be in the New York City area, Madison Square Garden is the place you want to be come March 13th. There's going to be an awesome event that's going to be happening there. Special appearance by Shane McMahon. You're going to see Bray Wyatt taking on John Cena for the WWE Championship. You're going to see Lesnar versus Kevin Owens. The WWE Universal title will be on the line. Remember, this card is subject to change, so a lot can happen between now and then. Usos are going to be taking on American Alpha for the tag titles. Luke Harper will face Randy Orton. Dolph Ziggler will be taking on Apollo Crews. Rhino and Slater will team up with Kalisto to face Breezango and Kurt Hawkins. And for your women's action, Alexa Bliss, Mickie James, Natalya, and Carmella will be taking on Nikki, Tamina, Becky Lynch. Naomi was on this card, but since she's out on injury, you got to scratch that one out. So should be interesting to see what's going to be coming about as far as a replacement, or if that match is just going to be revamped. Yahoo Sports had an interesting conversation with Shinsuke Nakamura as he was promoting WrestleMania 33. He basically has said that he would love to have a match against AJ Styles at WrestleMania. At which AJ Styles had said on Twitter, hey, sorry, I'm already booked for WrestleMania because I'm going to be the main event at WrestleMania. I'll be the, if not the champion, I'll be fighting for the WWE Championship. So as much as I'd like to see that go down, sorry, bro, I don't think it's going to be happening. But you would think that like before 2017 is up, like just hands down what those two men were able to do, tearing it up in New Japan, that they definitely would bring that over to the WWE, because that is fucking money when it's all said and done. That is serious fucking money. Speaking of money, I see that Burger King has bought Popeyes. Yes, Burger King actually bought Popeyes, the Popeyes franchise. I'm not talking about Eat Me Spinach. I'm talking about Love That Chicken. You were able to say Love That Chicken from Popeyes. Now you're going to be saying Love That Chicken from Ontario, Canada. So, yeah, apparently everything worked out, and they were able to buy Popeyes for like $1.6 billion, if I'm not mistaken. So you hear that, you're like, shit, that is some serious money. Yeah, that is some serious money. Everything is supposed to be finalized by like April, like mid-April of this year. So what could this mean, man? Could this mean, I don't know, in the very near future, you'd be able to walk up to a Burger King, you know, and like it's going to be split. Like on one side, you're going to have Burger King, and then on the other side, you're going to have fucking fried chicken from Popeyes. I'm so down for it. But I got to tell you, the restaurant industry as a whole, it's really been like kind of like on a decline over the past several years. I mean, other than for like your Super Bowls, your NBA Finals, Stanley Cup, World Series, other than like for like the major sporting events, the restaurant industry as a whole has been kind of like going down in sales a little bit. I mean, to the point, I'm sure you all have probably seen the new commercial that's floating around right now with Domino's. You got these owners who are conveniently white. I'm just Martin from Boomerang. Everything is a conspiracy theory with me. Don't pay me no mind. Don't take that shit personal. But no, seriously, you have these Domino's owners. They're like destroying their own restaurants that they bought like with their hard-earned fucking money or whatever, and they're demolishing them, and then they're building up these new Domino's, where honestly it reminded me of a nice throwback to what Pizza Hut used to do back in the day. There used to be a time, and I know a lot of you probably are a lot younger, and you probably do not remember this because by the time you were born, like, it didn't happen. But for kids like me that were around in the 80s, there was a time where you could walk into a Pizza Hut, you could see the pizza made and all that good jazz, and you actually used to be able to sit down with the entire family and used to be able to eat. It was almost kind of like you were going to a Lito's Pizza, or it definitely wasn't like a Little Caesars atmosphere or a Chuck E. Cheese. It wasn't anything like that. It was like, sit down, enjoy yourself. It was really nice back then, the way you could do it, and they used to be able to seat plenty of people, and then we kind of got to this point where it was like, come in, get your shit, get out. That's the point that we got to. So to see Domino's kind of go back to that standpoint, I kind of looked at that and said, Domino's is trying to maximize on the profits. I see what they're trying to do here. So that's their way of trying to have more people actually come to the restaurants, sit down, eat. They're looking for more sales. They're looking for more profit. That's what that comes down to. And I'm all fine for that. I'm totally all fine for that if that's the route that they want to take, quite honestly. And you know what? There was a name that I had missed that I wanted to really... what's the right word I'm looking for, that I really wanted to put emphasis on. When I was giving you guys that March 13th WWE event, Tamina Snuka is going to be part of that women's action that I was mentioning earlier. I don't know if I really had emphasized her name enough, but for those of you that's like, where the fuck has Tamina been? I know last we heard she was kind of like out on injury, dealing with some stuff, and then she actually was cleared. It was just a matter of when is Creative going to have something. So it looks like she's kind of like now back into the fold of things, so to speak. So we'll kind of see how that all plays out. And some fun news for you guys. I thought this was very interesting. We're doing fantastic on Showtime, by the way. I only got like about, I'm just looking here, I think we only got like one more topic to cover, and we're going out on a high note as it's about AJ Styles. And while I got you guys' attention, make sure you do me a solid and you make sure you like this episode. Hearted really does a phenomenal job and helping our show be recommended in the Spreaker search engine platforms and all that good stuff. So looking at the last few topics that we got going on right here, yeah, that's going to blend into that one, and then that'll set up that one. Yeah, we're pretty much almost done. All right, so AJ Styles was part of a Wizard World Q&A out in Portland over the weekend, and he talked about his experience in a nutshell with TNA Wrestling. Direct quote right here, can't make this shit up. Ring of Honor treated me well, and New Japan treated me like a superstar. So I've got to credit them, who helped boost my ego a little bit, because it was definitely flattened due to TNA's service. Now, he would go on to talk about the great matches he had with Samoa Joe, Christopher Daniels, saying, at that time, Joe and I were hoping to make TNA a big deal. That was what we wanted to do. The problem was the person who owned the company, she didn't see us as the stars that put TNA on the map, and not just me, but like Jerry Lynn, Christopher Daniels, Low Key, all those guys who did great things, and she didn't see it. Go put it bluntly, she wanted to be WWE light, and nobody wanted to see that. They wanted to see something different, and at one point in time, it was a great place to work. I don't know, but when you hear that, you're like, how you really feel, AJ? I just was like, look, I have not one, I have 2 shoot interviews that AJ Styles had did. I definitely got the one where he sat down with RF Video shortly after the whole TNA thing, and he really felt like TNA just totally shitted on him, right down to the ridiculous offer that they tried to give him when they were restructuring his contract. He thought it was a fucking joke, and you can genuinely tell that, like, what a lot of people may felt as though AJ Styles was being somewhat of a prima donna, so to speak. That actually was not the vibe I got. The vibe I basically got was, here is a man that has put in his time, his energy at this respected place of employment for a lot of years, and when it came time for the books to open up and it came time for him to be taken care of, yeah, he was taken care of in the previous years, but like when it really counted the most, as he was being devalued along the way, not by his design, but by basically what was being given to him. He can own up, but only a certain extent of the fact that what was being given to him, who knows, maybe he should have stood his ground a little bit more. Maybe he did try to stand his ground a little bit more and be vocal, but it gets to a point where you feel pretty complacent. You're like, hey, money's good, that's all that matters. But when you kind of see there's a few cracks in the foundation, sometimes as an employee, you need some type of reassurance that, hey, I'm continuing to work with you guys. Can you show me a little tiny bit of y'all are going to continue to make that commitment in me? And honestly, when he felt as though TNA no longer respected him, when he felt as though that his commitment to them after all these years was just kind of like, all right, he did what he needed to do. I know a lot of people were very hurt when he had left TNA Wrestling, but I tell you, it has just been an amazing journey to see him in the WWE. It just has me screaming, man, dude, why didn't you just come to the damn company a lot sooner? Look at what all you missed, man, along the way over these years. So to hear AJ Styles say what he said, this was very revealing. And I don't think a lot of other people are really going to be highlighting this, but I just think the one thing that really jumps out at me the most, the problem was the person who owned the company. Home in on that one more time. The problem was the person who owned the company. What does that tell you? That tells you, first off, he's very well aware. All those years that he was there in TNA Wrestling, you know he made some friends. There are probably some folks over there he considers to be brothers, family to a certain extent. So through his proper connections and, you know, hey, he probably has some friends in the media world as well. So this says to me that he's been following what's been happening with that particular promotion, even though he's been putting in his time this past year in the WWE. So just home in on that. The problem was, and I love the past tense, problem was, and then person who owned past tense. That is a past tense word. So that lets me know that he's been pretty current on what's been happening with that TNA promotion. So I know a lot of people, they want to take a big fat massive crap on Jeff Jarrett and everything like that, but I don't think Jeff Jarrett needs to be in the same argument with Dixie Carter with regards to AJ Styles' demise, because when it's all said and done, AJ Styles did not leave on Jeff Jarrett's watch. And anybody that is a true fan of the TNA promotion, you can easily go back. Jeff Jarrett saw a lot of potential in AJ Styles. You just think about all the infamous feuds that those guys had over the years. Jeff Jarrett knew a damn good thing when he saw it. He knew talent when he saw it. And when Jeff Jarrett was involved in the TNA promotion, he genuinely did try to do everything he could to look out for guys like AJ Styles. But when shit just started getting all weird, and then once Jeff Jarrett was out of there, that pretty much was it. The wrong people got all up in Dixie Carter's ears, and the next thing you know, she started believing the hype, you know, that she was this queen shit or whatever you want to call it, and that's when the bad bookings, the stupidity and writing just came about. If I need to point out one of the greatest examples of AJ Styles' poor run in TNA during like his last 3 years with the company, 2 words: Claire Lynch. Enough said. Enough said. So, you know, I'm just glad that the guy finally made the jump to the WWE. But I tell you what, for him to say what he had said, I don't look at this as him trying to take a cheap shot at the WWE. I know some people, at TNA. I know some people may feel as though that's what I don't genuinely feel. I think he was just being very candid. And you just have some wrestlers that will do that in some of these Q&As. You know, if they get a good question, some of them will just brutally be honest, because it's like these people, they're putting in the time, they're spending the money, and they want to make sure that these guys are getting their money's worth. Now, some will just tell you whatever, but AJ has been consistent. This is nothing new here. I mean, this goes back to the round of interviews that he's done. This coincides with the shoot interviews that he's done. He's always been consistent with his critique of how his tenure was the last few years with the TNA wrestling promotion. So I just thought that was really interesting to share with you guys. And Jeff Jarrett, I see he's been making his rounds talking about the future of TNA wrestling. You know, he's saying he wants to try to find the next AJ Styles. And look, I'm happy that Dixie Carter is no longer in business and everything like that. But if I have one piece of advice to give to Mr. Jeff Jarrett, I would just say, sir, with all due respect, before trying to find that next AJ Styles, that next Samoa Joe, do what you need to do internally to make sure that going forward, the TNA promotion, you know, do what you can to work with Anthem. Make sure that TNA during this new lease on life is really going in the direction that it really needs to be going. Start with your personnel, and honestly, it might be time. Spring is around the corner. You may need to sit down and you may need to look at some of these contracts that are in place right now and figure out if they're worth the money, let alone worth the time, and if honestly you're getting the talent's worth. Because without putting any names out there, you know, you look at some of the talents that are currently on this roster, and it's kind of like, you know what, we can do a little better. Especially with this new relationship that TNA Wrestling has going on right now with, what's the promotion? What's the Japan promotion? Pro Wrestling Noah? I think that's the promotion. I could be wrong. Don't quote me on that, because I've only seen the name once. So it should be interesting to see what happens with TNA going forward. But, you know, before you even try to go for similar talents like the ones you just mentioned, I definitely would do all of those other things first. Do what you can to make sure that TNA is growing, that it's thriving. And I said it once before, I'll say it again. Pull a goddamn Lucha Underground, man. Pull a ECW. Go find you a permanent arena somewhere, do it at a warehouse, rent out the space, buy the property, demolish it, rebuild it, make it be your own Impact Wrestling joint, charge for those damn tickets. Enough said, man. That's how you gotta fucking do it. Let's see, what else? I'm actually poking my head in the chat here. Speaking of TNA Wrestling, yeah, I've been watching the TNA Wrestling promotion, and I'm going to say this in a nutshell. Ooh, really hard to get through. Really, really hard to get through. I found myself fast forwarding big time through last week's episode. I got another episode on the DVR. I like what's going on with the whole Eddie Edwards, Davey Richards. I love the fact that Bobby Lashley got the title back. I love that. I'm very happy that Lashley got the title back. Fucking much needed. But I mean, other than that, And don't even get me started on this new Aaron Rex gimmick. Oh, yeah. I'm not going there. That's all I gotta say. I'm trying. Lord knows I try, but man, it's really, really, really hard to watch, man. Really hard to watch. What was I about to say? There was a question or two I was about to tackle. Oh, TNA. One more TNA related thing. For those of you that maybe aren't going to be able to do WrestleMania this year and you need something a little bit, I don't know, a little bit more inexpensive. TNA tapings are going to be happening on March 2nd through the 5th at Universal Studios in Florida. Now, if you guys missed that, your next opportunity to attend TNA tapings is going to be April 20th through the 23rd. You missed that one. You got July 2nd through July 6th. And then you have August 17th through August 20th. All of that is going to be going down at Universal Studios in Orlando, Florida. Fucking awesome, yeah? Yeah. So, other than that, let me look here. I don't see anything else that we need to cover for this week. I think we hit up all the very valid points. I'm just skimming in the chat here, looking for any questions or anything I need to read out loud. Can they have Joe or KO attack Foley? I thought he said, doctor said no more action due to concussions. You can have Samoa Joe maybe attack Foley from behind, put him in that rear naked chokehold submission move. You could definitely get away doing that one. But as far as like power bombing him and all that other shit, that's not happening. Would WWE go that route? Probably not. If it was maybe 10 years ago or 15 years ago, if WWE was not a publicly traded company, they probably may oblige Mick Foley, because there used to be that time where Mick Foley really like, come on, we gotta do this. We gotta do this. Come on, man, let me take this bump. Let me take it. But just now that we fast forward and Mick Foley's a little bit more wiser, he's a little bit more smarter about his health. At this point, I'd love to see something like that happen, but safe scenario, probably you see a backstage segment, Mick Foley's on the ground and he's unconscious. And maybe you cue up Noelle, who just happens to be backstage, tries to come to the aid of her father, find out what's going on. This has her have like serious beef with Stephanie McMahon. Maybe somewhere down the road, Noelle tries to pop up, get revenge for the Foley name. 'Cause they've been trying to get Noelle involved in the main roster for the longest. It's actually one of the main reasons why Foley decided he wanted to try to get back into the fold of WWE, because he wanted to like do what he could to try to get Noelle up in there. So we'll see how that plays out. See what else we got here. It's going through some more stuff. Let me go to Twitter here. Good, nothing on Twitter. That means I can wrap it up. Okay, so minus the songs, we did about 2 hours and about 5 minutes. I'm happy with that. Next edition of the RCWR Show. I will be coming at you guys this Thursday live on YouTube. I'll be doing another edition of some listener questions and stuff. It's going to be our 3rd volume. And this weekend, I'll be doing something live on Facebook for a few minutes as well. So that's going to be awesome. And then other than that, your next radio edition is going to be on Tuesday, February 28th, the last day of February. How about that? That's like a rarity for our show. I think that might be the first time ever that our show has landed on the final day in the month of February. So that's pretty awesome right there. I think we had leap year. I think we did something on leap year last year. I could be wrong. I got to go back and check that out. Pretty sure we did do something on leap year. So that's going to be awesome. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, at the RCWR Show. I am going to work out the kinks to see what's going on with those reviews, to see if we can clean that up so you guys can leave those ratings and reviews. So stay connected with me on social media. That way, when it's all resolved, we get it nice and ready for you guys. And that is going to do it. Appreciate the love and support as always. Remember, if you enjoy the show, show the ultimate support. Support the show on patreon.com/RCWR Show. Leave ratings, reviews on Stitcher, iTunes, iHeartRadio, all that good jazz. Those of you waiting for this on the downloads, give me about 20 minutes. I will have this ready for you all. Appreciate the love and support as always. Good night, good morning.
Good night.